Welcome to the Bowel Chronicles, where we dive deep into the world of bowel health. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and on this podcast we have raw and candid conversations with individuals facing various bowel conditions and illnesses. Through personal stories and shared experiences, we illuminate resilience and courage in the face of adversity. Be reminded that each story is personal and unique. These conversations are not to be taken as medical advice or to replace guidance from a doctor or healthcare provider. Our aim is to inspire and empower through these amazing stories, amplifying voices often unheard. So join us as we embark on this journey together. Sit back, listen, and be inspired. Enjoy the episode. Well, hello guys, welcome back to the Bowel Chronicles. I'm your host, Nikki Kilpatrick, and today with me is Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you're currently in Bali, which is amazing that we're actually managing to get this interview done. So thank you for coming along and being prepared to share some of your amazing story with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to talk about everything.
We've tried to get this date in the diary quite a
Yeah.
few times, and then stoma life, it has gotten in the way with minor hiccups, one of yours being unplanned surgery. Oh, but you're doing great. You're making a good recovery, which we will get to. But Elizabeth,
Yeah.
why don't you start off by sharing a little of your story? You've been diagnosed for years. I think like
Yeah.
25 years is what you told me, but
Yeah. So been living with it for 25, but been diagnosed since 2009. So what's that? I can't even think. 15 years? Yeah, 15, 16 years.
right.
That's great.
So we'll go back to there 15, 16 years ago. Where were you in your life? You know, what was happening? What were your symptoms? You're diagnosed with IBD, two
Yeah.
forms of IBD.
Crohn's and colitis.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead. Tell us a little bit.
absolutely. So like everybody really, we have like the long story, the misdiagnosis. I find it's very common, isn't it, when we talk
Mm,
to others that are living with IBD. So I kind of had a similar situation. So my whole life, my mum had always said that I struggled with tummy ache. Like she'd even dropped me off at school when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I would literally complain of like, oh, I don't want to go to school, mummy, I've got a tummy ache. And there was nothing wrong with me, nothing wrong, absolutely fine. But I complained of a tummy ache. So she told me about that only like a few years ago. And then, of course, go through school, go through college. And all through my teens, I always struggled with kind of, I guess, food sensitivities. When you just know, like this was before we knew what IBS was, before we knew what intolerances were, before nutrition, obviously before social media. But I just knew that if I ate like red meat, for example, my stomach hurt. Or if I drank alcohol, because of course, when you're teenagers, you all start like dabbling with alcohol. And all my friends were, having alcohol. But every time I'd have something, I just got really bloated, like really bad wind, really sore. So I always knew something was up with my tummy and my stomach. And then it was when I got through college and then I went to university in London to study graphic design and photography, which you'd think that sounds wonderful. But it was so stressful. It was a very, very top course at Kingston University. So it was very full on and very demanding. And so I noticed my symptoms just started getting worse and worse. And, I didn't drink. I was really mindful of my food. And of course, back then, because I wasn't feeling good after certain foods, I then was like, well, I need to make sure I eat healthily. So I then started looking into nutrition and falling in love with nutrition and healthy eating, which, of course, as we know, when you're living with Crohn's and colitis, raw salads, lots of veg, nuts and seeds, they're not good. They are, and lots of fiber, like it's not good for our gut, but I didn't know. So I was living this lifestyle, and I was at uni for a year. And then anyway, roll on a few years. I quit uni after the first year because it was just too much. I moved to Cape Town because my boyfriend at uni was from South Africa, and I moved with him. And I was very lucky then that I met his mother, and she was a natural holistic beauty therapist and very passionate about health and nutrition. And she was, taking me to all these different doctors, and I was learning about gut health and learning about nutrition even more. So I really got into it, then came back to England, then moved to Australia. This is where it all starts now, where it all kind of happened. I lived in Australia in my kind of early 20s, surfing every day, working at a gym, like eating healthily, like drinking wine, having beer, like having a lifestyle of an early 20-year-old. Still struggling though with bloating and wind. It was a lot of that, and like sickness as well. I think that's quite common, isn't it, when we have IBD, like to wake up and you just feel sick and then you eat and then you're okay. So like we all do, I just lived with it. That was me, that was normal. I knew that in the morning I had to be by the toilet because I rushed to the toilet twice before 10 o'clock. And it just became no the norm. And anyway, then I was there 4 years. And towards the end, before I came home, which the reason I came home was because I was so ill, is I was working in a gym at this time and I got really, really ill. I couldn't stop running to the toilet, but losing blood. I couldn't stop fainting and being sick. I was already very, very slim because I was young, I was surfing, I was exercising, like I was very small. I dropped a shed load of weight, so I got really skinny. And my mum and dad had just come over to visit, and I'd broken up with my ex at the time. And it was that kind of, should I go back to England? Should I not? And I remember them going home. And then, like a couple of weeks later, I hit a wall. I was so ill. So I decided to fly home, which was the worst flight in the world, as you can imagine, because this was just before I was diagnosed. So I was literally in a flare up, not knowing it, flying from Sydney to London on my own as well, which was really scary. Got home, went to the doctors, told him what was going on. They rushed me straight into hospital for a colonoscopy because I think that's the problem. All the years I went back and forth to the doctors, they kept doing the flexi-sigmoidoscopy, which obviously is halfway up. So even though my disease was kind of down the bottom bit, the first bit of the colon, I think it had got worse round. But anyway, they did a colonoscopy, and that was June or July 2009. And yet, there and then, they diagnosed me with Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis straight away.
Double whammy.
Double whammy.
So you're back then living at home with your parents back in the UK,
Yeah.
diagnosis comes. Was there a bit of like relief of like I knew there's something always been going on?
100%. Yeah. And I think that's it again, like with all of us that get diagnosed, it's that kind of, oh, sugar, oh, I've got this disease, but yay, there's actually something we can now work with because.
You, did you understand what Crohn's and colitis was at this point?
No, that's the other thing as well. Not really. I mean, so in Australia, I'd done a diploma in natural beauty therapy with nutrition. Like I said, I've always been very passionate about it. And the school I trained in also had holistic naturopaths and nutritionists. So we kind of mixed with them. And I remember talking to a few of the women about my symptoms. And I vaguely remember them saying something definitely about celiac, but also about Crohn's. So when the doctor diagnosed or the surgeon diagnosed me, I was like, oh, okay, I think I've heard of that. And then kind of, yeah, obviously started researching it. But of course, back then they give you a leaflet and like you just kind of go off. But yeah, they put me straight on prednisolone and I literally felt incredible within about 3, 4 days. I was like, oh my gosh, I've got no bloating. It was amazing, which is
Yeah.
awful to now.
Which is awful to think about, but that's what steroids do. But as soon as the
Exactly.
steroid finished, what was what happened?
Yeah, so that was the thing. So that was like, yeah, June, July, they put me on prednisolone and also Pentasa and Mercaptopurine. So I was on those daily. Obviously did that, I think it was it like 10-week prednisolone. And as it started weaning off, I did notice my symptoms come back a little bit, but nowhere near what they were before. So I actually was then really lucky. I was able to live for a good year before I then had another flare up. And then what happened then for the next, however, what was it, 10, 11 years till I had my stoma surgery, I seemed to get a flare up every like October, November time, which was interesting. So then went back on steroids. So yeah, I was on 8 to 10 weeks of steroids at least once a year for 11 years. And then, yeah, towards obviously the end before my stoma surgery, it was IV drips of prednisolone and constant, and then obviously the weight gain and the moon face, which we can talk about as well. So, but yeah, for the most part, I handled it really well with my medication, the steroids, and lifestyle. But then it got the better of me, unfortunately.
So 2019, you ended up having surgery.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the flare-ups got to a certain point, or was it a case of you'd had biologics
Mhm.
and you became resistant to them? What actually happened then that they started talking about stoma surgery, or was it an emergency?
No, absolutely that, the biologicals. So when was it? I think it was 2015, 14. Yeah, I think 2014, they started me on, is it infliximab? So we started on infliximab, and I think I only tried that for 3 to 6 months. And then they were like, this isn't working. So we're going to take you off that. So tried that for a few months. And then I went on vedolizumab. And that one, see, so I think was I can't even remember if I was still on Pentasa and Mercaptopurin as well. Like it's so long ago, it's awful. But yeah, I remember obviously being on vedolizumab for probably about 2 or 3 years. Yeah, about 3 years. It's crazy the timing. So as anybody knows that's been on it, you'd go into hospital on a drip. They start you off where it's like once, and then you have it 2 weeks later, then 4 weeks later, then 6 weeks later, and then you have it every 8 weeks. So basically, every 8 weeks, I'd go in for like 3 hours. And yeah, again, I remember like that kept it at bay. I felt fine. I felt okay. I still was going on steroids though, because it kind of kept flaring, but not, it's really hard to remember. Like not super bad, but it was still not right, like to the point I was going to the toilet like 10 times a day. But then, like we said, I had the surgery 2019, but for about a year and a half before my surgery, or a year, I was pretty much housebound with like just a constant flare up, like going to the toilet 20 to 30 times a day, like blood, mucus, throwing up, passing out. Um, so I think that's probably when, yeah, I was still on the biologicals, and then they started, it must have been, yeah, that last year, we just kept pumping me full of steroids to try and get rid of it. And just wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. So then it was the conversation about surgery. And when they said surgery, I thought they meant like cut a bit out and sew you back together. But then they obviously said about a stoma. And weirdly, I'd lived with Crohn's and colitis for years, but I didn't really understand. Because again, like, sorry to bring it back to social media, but we're so like lucky now that social media is just full of other people with stomas. So yeah, had the conversations with the surgeon, and of course, again, like most people, I was in so much pain. I had no life. I was so ill. I'd been on steroids so long, so my weight had like ballooned up like 25 kilos. And I just remember saying, "Yep, take it out, take it out." I was like, just, I don't want it, take it out. So yeah, and then I can talk to you about the surgeries.
You agreed to do surgery, and yeah,
Mm.
social media is amazing these days with so many people sharing their stories. But back 5, 6 years ago, it wasn't the same.
No, it wasn't.
Take off a little bit. Yeah. So you didn't know anyone with a stoma. This was all completely new to you. Was there anyone else in your family with IBD?
No, so this is the interesting thing. We've kind of like looked into it a little bit, I suppose, since I've been kind of diagnosed since 2009. So my dad, we think, or pretty much has diverticulitis, or a little bit of diverticulitis, which we've then found out, I think, his mum had. So my grandparents all passed away when I was about like one, so I didn't know them, but we think Nanny had it. And then my brother actually, we again, I don't understand. I think he's got colitis. Like he says he has. He's not very open about it. He talked to him more, but he takes granules every single day. So I think they've kind of diagnosed it, but not. But he definitely has stomach digestive issues. So yeah, there's definitely something going on. But my mum's fine. Like my mum's absolutely fine. But I was lucky because I remember when we were told about the surgery, I was obviously with mum and dad. They were really upset. I was a little bit upset, but almost relieved that I was like, just let's get this done. And even back then, like we said, it was 2019, which of course got social media. But I went on Instagram and the first thing I did was I hashtag stoma and hashtag ostomy. And I remember just going, oh my gosh. And it was just reels of these beautiful women, like mums, young people with stomas in bikinis and men. And I was like looking, going, oh, okay. Okay. So if I'm going to have a stoma bag, this is okay. This is okay. And I think that was real comfort. And I think back then, do you know heard of Hannah Witten? Do you know Hannah Witten? No. So she's literally what I call like the OG stoma girl because she was on YouTube and she was literally the only kind of stoma person that was really talking about it. So I went on her YouTube channel and literally binged it. And she's lovely, like she's really charismatic and bubbly and funny. And I was like, okay, let's do this.
Yeah, it kind of gives
So
you
yeah,
that of hope. It's quite a similar story to my own. Yeah.
yeah,
And I
there you go.
think it's very needed because otherwise you can have this opinion of like stomas are for old people and you have to be
Yes.
completely dying, in order for this to happen. And it's not something you would ever say, yes, sign me up for, you know.
No,
But so
that's exactly.
your surgery then, what type of surgery did they plan for you to come in and have? Was it an ileostomy? Was it a colostomy? Was it loop ileostomy? Permanent? What was the
It
plan?
was, yeah. So the plan was to do, yeah. So we did a loop ileostomy to start with, and the plan, obviously, with a loop ileostomy was to just have it temporary, so I could rest my large bowel because that's where all my disease was. It was pretty much my ulcerative colitis that was causing all the problem. So they did the loop ileostomy, and we're like, right, okay, let's just rest your bowel now for a bit, and we'll just see if that makes any difference. And so we did, excuse me, we did the surgery. And again, I don't know whether I'm just lucky or I was in so much pain before, but I had the stoma and I was like, oh, so this is weird, but okay. And I remember my nurses were so shocked at like the second day I changed my stoma bag on my own. And they came in, they were like, what? You've done it. Are you okay? I was like, yeah, like let's crack on and do this. Whereas yeah, so I had that. That was the September 2019. And then I felt a little bit better, but not a lot because I was still rushing to the toilet from my bum with blood and mucus, even though it obviously, well, as you know, wasn't attached. But I thought, okay, this is a bit pointless now. I've got a stoma bag, but I'm still rushing to the toilet. This is not good. So I tried it for a bit. And then by the November, I think I'd had another procedure like colonoscopy or whatever it was at the time. And they said, look, it's still pretty diseased because I was doing I was doing the Pentasa foam enemas as well. So I was doing lots of the foam enemas and the capsules as well up your bum, doing everything.
Oh, after stoma surgery? Yeah.
I know this is it, and nothing was helping. So, yeah, in the end, they were like, I think we need to do a subtotal colectomy. We need to just remove all your large intestine. And even when they said that, I don't think my reaction was like, oh my gosh, is that permanent? I was like, yep, cool, take it out. I was like, crack on, take it out. So yeah, in the November 2019, I went in for subtotal colectomy. My surgeon was incredible, obviously took it out. And I remember him saying to me like that evening, like it was one of the worst he'd ever seen. He said it was so inflamed and covered in ulcers. And I was kind of a bit annoyed, not with him, but with my consultant because I'd been ill for a whole year and I'd had colonoscopies and sigmoidoscopies, and they were like, yeah, it's bad, it's active. But no one had said, oh my God, it's really bad. So I don't know. But anyway, so they took took that out in the November, and immediately I felt so much better. Like, I don't know whether it was in my head, but I think the actual fact of having that diseased organ physically taken from my body, I felt, yeah, so much better. So got through Christmas, got, January, and then obviously we're coming into 2020. Me and my ex-boyfriend, we went on holiday. My first holiday with a stoma was like, what, 4 months after my surgery, which was wonderful. I was like, yeah, let's go, high-waisted bikinis, let's do this. I was like, let's go. And I did. I felt so much better. I was still going to the toilet a little bit, but from my bum, but nowhere near as much. And I remember being nervous on the plane, but I was fine. And we went, we did like an all-inclusive, and we had all this lovely like fish and salads, and we had like wine with dinner. And my boyfriend at the time was like, oh my gosh, like you're back to you, like normal. It was so wonderful. So that was, yeah, January. Then obviously came back and it was COVID. And then I can't even remember what happened. I think I was still just struggling with mucus and blood from my bum. And I think, excuse me, back and forth with the doctors. And they were like, well, look, let's have the conversation about whether do you want to maybe do a J pouch, or do you want to make this permanent? Like, it's a big decision. Like, what do you want to do? So went back and forth, went up to, is it St. Mark's in Oxford, I think it is, which is like the top gastro hospital. Saw one of the surgeons there, spoke to him, spoke to the nurses. And in the end, I made the decision. I thought, you know what? I've lived with this stoma now for nearly a year with kind of no real issues. Like, I was very lucky. I didn't have leaking or any major blockages. So I just said, you know what? Yeah, let's remove my bum. So in the August 2020 during COVID, I could still never say it, proctectomy.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you. So yes, I had my rectum and my anus removed, and yeah, weirdly, that was the hardest surgery because you've had that, yeah.
No, I haven't. I
But you
haven't.
haven't had that was the toughest surgery because it's physically on your bum. So you can't lie, you can't sit, you're just really uncomfortable. But I was fine. And then, yeah, healed really well. And then, so that was 2020. And here we are. And like I said, up until a month ago, I've had blockages and a few little issues, but nothing major. And I've been living with my permanent ileostomy. Yeah, for
Yes.
5 years. 5 years.
And then we go back there. So you had three surgeries, you had two surgeries quite close together, September and November. Did you feel like failed a little bit, because could they not have done that second surgery at the same time?
Yeah, we did
Yeah.
discuss that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because how many surgeries have you had? Did you have the two?
I had a laparoscopy surgery done in the September, and then I had my stoma surgery done in the January, but the plan was to have it all done in the September, October
Ah,
time. And they ended up taking me to theatre really late on a Friday, and the surgeon was finishing at 5 o'clock, and I just knew. I thought he is never going to do my full stoma surgery today, so it waited until the January. So I still have a lip ileostomy, but for me it's permanent.
there we go. Now that's so interesting because yeah, you and I we're quite rare because I don't speak to a lot of people that have a loop ileostomy that's permanent. Because like you said, most people just have one, whereas we have two. And weirdly, with this recent like bowel twist hernia surgery, I'd been planning on hoping to have that in the NHS for the last like couple of years. And I said to my surgeon, I was like, can you just remove the top one? And yeah, his answer was always like, well, unless you're really bad, like with your hernia and we need to, he was like, just leave it. He was like, just leave it because it's not causing it. I mean, mine, like especially at the moment, I have a lot of mucus come from it, but it's not painful. It's there. But yeah, answer to your question. No, I think I was okay because I think again it's the process. And looking back, they could have done the temporary loop ileostomy and then I could have felt amazing and they could have popped it back and then I might not have lived with a stoma, but it's all in hindsight. But it was interesting as well because in the July 2019, coincidentally, I'd gone in for major back surgery as well. So I had really, really big back surgery whilst I was in a massive flare. So my surgeon, this my other surgeon, was amazing because he had to, it was from the front, and obviously my bowel was all swollen. He had to go around it. So I think when I went in for my stoma surgery, I just had a big back surgery, which was obviously my first operation. So I kind of was like, well, I've done this. Let's go in again.
Oh, what a trooper. Oh,
And yeah, kind of did it. So yeah, I just kind of I let them do their thing.
yeah.
Let them do their
You're
thing.
such a trooper. I mean, it's an awful lot to go through. And here you are now. You've been living in Bali for over a year. Is it a year and a half or
Yeah,
something?
yeah. I don't
What
know where that's gone.
what took you to Bali, and how has life been like living it with a stoma in Bali?
Yeah, absolutely. So oh my gosh. So since I got back from Australia, once I got better from my diagnosis, I actually started my own beauty business from home because I love waxing and facials, and it was a plan just to do it for some extra pocket money because I was working full time as a practice manager in a health clinic. And anyway, within 6 months that turned into a full-time business. And then I did it from home full time, seeing 70 women a week. And then in 2014, I actually opened my own beauty salon and employed a team of 10 over 4 years. But again, this was when I was having my flare ups and starting biologicals. So there is a reason for this story. So basically, yeah, I'd run my own beauty business from home, which, yes, was busy, but I loved it. I was financially secure. I was doing a job I loved, and I was right next to my toilet. So and I didn't have to start work till 10. So it was perfect. But then when I opened the salon, obviously it came with a whole other load of issues like managing staff, hiring, firing. It was very difficult and it was very stressful. And a year after I started my salon, my dad got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He is literally the one in a billion that is still with us, very happy, 87 years old, doing amazing. But that was really, really not good situation because we nearly lost him. So did that, and then yeah, 2018, I this was obviously just before my surgery, and I was getting so ill. I was passing out in the toilet at work. I was having to cancel clients. I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I closed down my beauty salon and went to work from home. Then I opened, because I'm such a, I hate the word entrepreneur, but I've done it since I was like 23. So because I couldn't see all my clients, I then thought, well, I'll start a brand, an organic skincare brand, because that's my passion, is skincare and nutrition. So I started a whole skincare brand from scratch. I'm a skincare formulator, so that's my background as well. Launched that whilst doing waxing, running this e-commerce brand on my own, trying to manage through surgeries, like working on my laptop after surgeries. I had a boyfriend at the time who was great, he was great. We lived together, but it was really stressful. Then obviously COVID, and then it just, like, everything, like the business got really busy. I couldn't really cope. I was working like 14, 15-hour days. I then had breast reduction surgery because my boobs had got so big because of the steroids, which was a whole other story. And long story short, I broke up with my boyfriend at the beginning of 2022. So after my breast reduction surgery, I moved out of his home, his house, into my little flat, which I only had a bedroom because the whole little two-bedroom flat was my skincare brand. So I had literally floor to ceiling boxes. I had big industrial tables because I was making hundreds and hundreds of creams from my kitchen and from my lab. So I literally had my bedroom with the TV. No, I didn't have a TV for a year. So I was literally like a student. I didn't have anything. And I hit burnout. So literally, yeah, at the end of 2022, I think because I just stopped and I was on my own, I just hit a brick wall and I couldn't get out of bed. I was crying every day. I was not in a good situation. And like my friends will say, it was almost like a delayed PTSD, I guess, from the surgery, because I'm, a happy, positive person. I think I'd gone through everything like, oh, this is fine, this is fine. And I had to because I run a business. Um, and then, yeah, really struggling. 2023 came, and as fate would have it, August 23, I'd moved back into my flat the beginning of 2022, because it was a buy to let. Um, the mortgage company contacted me in August 23 and wrote me a letter and basically said, you've got to make your mortgage residential or we can't like cover you. So because I'd been building this business and I hadn't been earning as much as I used to because I had all the surgery, so I couldn't do all the waxing, I obviously couldn't afford to get a mortgage, even though I could afford the repayments. So, as fate would have it, I turned 40 last year. And when I broke up with my ex, the first thing I said was, right, for my 40th, I'm going back to Bali. I'm going to go to Australia because I hadn't been there since I lived there. I'm going to get back into my surfing. So, answer to your question, like that's why I came to Bali, because I love surfing. I love massages. I love facials. I love the sun. I love reformer Pilates and I love food. And basically, Bali ticks all of those boxes. So I decided when I got that letter, I looked into like selling my flat, renting it out, moving back and forth. I'm like, Mum and Dad, can you help me? What can we do? And in the end, I was like, do you know what? Screw this. I'm done. So I said, right, I'm selling my flat. I'm going to put everything in storage and I'm going to go to Bali for 6 months. In February 2024. And of course, my friends were like, you're not going for 6 months. I was like, I'm going for 6 months. I'll come back in 6 months. And of course, I didn't come back in 6 months. So I moved out here in February 2024. And, if you follow me on Instagram, like the transformation physically and emotionally has just been incredible. Like I dropped 16 kilos in 6 months. My pain started going. I got into breath work. I got back into surfing. I obviously did reformer Pilates, which is affordable here, not like in England. And yeah, and I just did the whole classic coming to Bali to heal. And that's what I did last year. I didn't want to make friends. I didn't want to socialize. I just wanted to be on my own because I'd had such a full-on life. And that's what I did. And then, yeah, so being here over a year and about 6 weeks before this emergency surgery, I just said to my friends, I think I'm done with Bali now. I think I'm ready to go back to England, maybe move to Portugal or Spain. And then, boom, surgery. And it's made the decision for me. So, yeah, so been here over 15 months or 15 months.
So you're coming back to the UK in just a few weeks' time. By the time this podcast is aired, you'll be back in the UK.
Yeah, back in.
Month or two
Moved back
months.
the 22nd of May.
Yeah. And let's talk about 6 weeks ago what happened. So we were planning a podcast and you took on well. And the next thing you're in hospital having to go through unplanned surgery. Yeah.
Absolutely. Unbelievable. So, like I said, I've been living here for over a year, surfing, Pilates, climbing mountains, driving my scooter, eating foods. Like, I've been absolutely fine. A little bit of Bali belly, which is normal, that's fine. It's just for 24 hours. But then in February, so I did my breathwork facilitator training here in Ubud. And a couple of weeks after that, I got Bali belly. Again, standard, it's fine. It will go in 24 hours, no problem. But it didn't go in 24 hours. It carried on. And I started getting really sick. And like we were talking about before we recorded, my stoma bag just kept filling up with water, constantly filling up with water. And I was like, this isn't right. Like I definitely haven't got a blockage. So like what is going on? So normally I would never do this because I'm quite a strong person and I've got a high pain threshold and I just kind of get on with things. But a couple of days in, I was like, right, this is quite scary now. So I actually took myself straight to hospital, which is an hour away from here, and went into hospital. They obviously did bloods, IV drips, and everything. And they were like, yeah, you've got gastroenteritis. And I was like, oh no. Because the last time I had that was a year before I got diagnosed with Crohn's and colitis. So I was very sick with gastroenteritis back then. So I got that, and they were like, right, we'll put you on like painkillers and stuff. And did they put me on? I can't even remember what they put me on. No, they didn't put me on antibiotics to start with, because that was it. They wanted to check me for a parasite. And I was like, oh God, what is that? Like, oh God. So weirdly, they sent me home without any antibiotics. I think it was just painkillers then, and like something else. I can't remember. I got home, and yeah, literally within 2 days, I was like, right, I'm still not well. I feel really, really, and I was being sick and just horrendous. Went back to hospital, did another stool sample, stayed there, did another one, and then they were like, yeah, you've got a parasite, so we need to put you on parasite treatment. So I was like, okay, we know what it is, that's fine. So this was literally all of February, beginning of March. I was on the parasite treatment. I was just eating plain foods and taking it easy, still doing my Pilates. I even started boxing. I did a couple of boxing classes, but my tummy was like quite sore, and I'd done a bit of surfing, but I remember cancelling with my surf coach a couple of days because I was like, my tummy just feels, when you've got stoma and you just feel like it's just tight. And anyway, that happened. And then the Tuesday, yeah, because this was the parasites. This was literally all of February and March. Like I can't even remember where the dates are going now. And then it was the 1st of April, I think it was the 1st of April. Gosh, like the whole gut brain thing as well. I said to my doctor, when your gut is not happy, your brain doesn't work. It doesn't work. But yeah, I think it was the 1st of April. It was a Tuesday. I'd gone to Pilates with my friend. We'd gone for breakfast. I felt fine. I had a bit of a tummy ache, but I felt fine. Went home, did some work, and then got ready for boxing because I was like, I'm going to go drive and do a boxing class. And I got to boxing and I did 5 minutes. And I said to the instructor, I was like, I'm so sorry, I'm going to have to go. Like, I feel really sick. So I drove home, got home, and I was like, oh, I really don't feel well. I had a shower, and then I was like, I can't feel my stoma because like we always kind of touch our stoma and our bag and whatnot. And I touched it and I was like, I can't really feel it. So I took my stoma bag off, and my stomach was really swollen, and my bottom, like we said, the loop ileostomy, the bottom stoma, my proper stoma, had like retracted in. It like pulled in. And so I called my friend Sophie. I'm really lucky, like we said, with the stoma community. So my friend Sophie in England, luckily it was her morning, and she picked up, and I told her what was going on, and she was like, "Oh my God, honey," she said, "get straight to the hospital," because she'd actually had the surgery that I then went in to have about 5 weeks earlier, which was weird. And we'd had stoma surgeries like 2, 3 weeks apart. So she was like, I think it sounds like your bowel has twisted. And I was like, what? Like, what is that? So yeah, again, long story short, won't go into it, but yeah, I rushed myself to hospital. I have never been in so much pain in my life. I was on the back of the car on my own in Bali. The taxi driver, bless her, she couldn't speak English. So I was like Google translating, got there, yeah, rushed in. They like CT scan, blood test, put me on fluid, everything. And then, yeah, the CT scan, they were like, yeah, your bowel has all completely twisted and it's like strangling itself. So I was like, oh, great. Like, oh my God. And I knew my hernia was getting worse. And I think that's my problem. I didn't stop. I should have pulled back on the surfing and the Pilates because I knew it was getting worse. And then yeah, they called the stoma surgeon in, and obviously, like we said, before I moved to Bali, the first thing I did was research that they have proper stoma surgeons in Bali, and there's 4. And yeah, so they called him in, and it took him a few hours, and he got there, and he was lovely, and he obviously explained everything, and he was like, right, we've got to get you in. We've got to repair your hernia because your hernia had got really bad. Um, And yeah, and that's what happened. And then I went in and I was in hospital for I think a week. Yeah, in Bali. And the bonus is I got my hernia repaired, which is fantastic. But he did obviously all the other stuff, and I've healed really well. But like we were saying earlier, the parasite I had previously that I'd been taking antibiotics, I'm still really poorly with that. Not really poorly, but as in feel sick. And so I was on antibiotics for 5 days. I just stopped them 2 days ago, and my stoma now has started being a bit weird again. So it's been a really, really rubbish year so far, I'm not gonna lie, which is why I'm now moving home.
You're ready to come back to the UK in a few weeks' time.
I'm ready. Yeah. So it's kind of like my health made that decision for me because I was planning on going back in August, but now it's a bit earlier. God.
Well, you didn't do 6 months. You've done much longer than
Yeah.
six.
And that's what my friends said here. They were like, to be fair with you live with a stoma and Crohn's and everything, like they're like, you've managed very, very well to live out here, like which I think I have. I really have, and I'm proud of myself.
You've kept yourself occupied when you've been in your hospital bed, or you've been sick, or you've been poorly. You've been coming up with new plans and new ideas for the future. So why don't you share with us some of those plans that you've just well, one
Yeah.
particular you've just launched recently. So
Absolutely. So I think that's another kind of like benefit of, people like us who work for ourselves. It's kind of positive and negative because when you're in hospital having surgery and you're recovering, like people were like, were you bored? Were you lonely? I was like, no. I was like, I've got my stoma community. I said it was a full-time job. I was messaging people like 300 times a day. Because everyone's so amazing, aren't they? That everyone's checking in on you. So I was like, I was not lonely. But yeah, whilst I was in bed and obviously recovering, so for years since my stoma surgery, I've always wanted to write a stoma and IBD like nutrition and recipe book. Like I've always wanted to do that. And when I did the breathwork training, like my friend I made there, Michelle, was like, she's like my biggest cheerleader. And I told her about it. And she was like, you should so do this. Like, what are you waiting for? Just do it. And then, of course, had the surgery. So while I had the thinking time, I was like, do you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So yeah, so I worked really hard in hospital. And then, of course, all my recovery time when I was in bed, I watched a hell of a lot of movies. But I also wrote, yeah, my nutrition and recipe ebook called Delicious, which is I think over 73 pages. It's got over 40 anti-inflammatory recipes, so breakfast, lunches, dinners, salads, dressings, desserts, drinks. And I launched it, I think about 3, 4 weeks. Well, yeah, about 3 weeks ago. So yeah, it's in ebook format at the moment. So you can purchase it through my website. I can do a discount code for you guys, obviously, so we can share that. But people have been asking if it's going to be in a hard cover. So I said as soon as I get back to England, I would love to speak to some people about how I do that eventually. But yeah, so I've launched that. I've obviously been like helping people in the background through my like IBD stoma nutrition, like coaching, I guess you could call it. And it's called Wildly Brave Wellness because I feel like when we live with a stoma or IBD, we are so brave. I'm sorry, we are brave. So called it Wildly Brave. And like I was saying to you before we started, I'm now a qualified breathwork facilitator. So I want to now, when I get back to England, online and offline, specialize in doing breathwork sessions for women living with IBD and or stomas, but focusing like on our inflammation and our emotions and really like I don't know, homing into that as well as the nutrition. So yeah, so that's my kind of plan now is just to build a beautiful community of women with stomas and IBD and help them through nutrition and through breath. So yeah.
I absolutely love it. It's amazing. Yeah. So all of the information will be in the show notes below. So you're going to pop me over some links to your
I
website. We'll get them into the show notes along with your social media handles. So you can go ahead and follow Elizabeth on Instagram. She is Wildly Brave Wellness on Instagram. Like I said, those handles will be in the show notes, so go over. Maybe you can organize a discount code for anyone that is looking to purchase your ebook, Delicious. And
absolutely. Well, what do you want to? Yeah, we can do it now if you want. Do you want to do? Well, actually, we could do. I've got one. Well, Delicious 20, which is 20% off. So, do you want to do that? Yeah.
no, we'll get that organized. Yeah.
Perfect. That would be
Um,
amazing.
As well, folks, if you're listening and watching today, if there's any questions that have came up for you or something that you're like, oh, I'd like more information on that, do drop Elizabeth or myself a message and we will get back to you. Um, yeah, Elizabeth, is there anything else that you want to touch on before we wrap up today? Or
No, I think, oh my gosh, I mean, you know what it's like with our journeys. I could talk to you for hours about about IBD and stomas. It's honestly, it's my biggest love. And I think, yeah, I'm just wishing everybody listening like health and happiness. And like you said, if people want to reach out, you know, you can contact me on DMs if you've got any questions about nutrition or anything. Like I love helping as much as I can if I can, yeah, if I can, I'm there. But no, I'm so grateful. Thank you for having me.
what a story of inspiration. You know, I think so many of us with a stoma, not that like you struggle, but you just go through life and you're like, okay, what's I've got over one hurdle, what's the next hurdle coming my way? You know, stoma surgery kind of changes things up. It can take away the pain and everything in life can be brilliant on the other side of it, but it doesn't get away from all the little minor hiccups, as we said beforehand. A flu is not a normal flu, or a tummy bug is not a normal tummy bug with the stoma. It's a little bit worse. And we're navigating all of these things and it's hard enough doing that in the UK with the NHS being the way it is. But here you are in another country, you've traveled, you've been living in Bali for over a year, you know, you're anticipating maybe going to Spain for your next move. You know, if that doesn't inspire people to kind of just relax and just take on everyday life and just step into life and say yes to things, I don't know what will. You know?
Absolutely. And that is my plan is exactly that, to inspire people, because I said that to my friend this morning. I was like, I sometimes wish I could just be like a little bit more chilled and be like happy with just staying in England and having a job, like a proper job, like a 9 to 5 job and doing that. But unfortunately, I love traveling. I love this, I love that. And apart from my surgery recently, like I don't want to let it hold me back. So yeah, anyone listening that's at the beginning part of their journey, like you don't have to hold back, basically.
As I
Yeah.
always say, this having a stoma, especially having a stoma, yes, it
Mm.
may be seen as a disability, but actually having a stoma gives you the ability to do so much more.
It does. Because yeah, I'm not running, apart from like when we have the bacteria infection, I'm not running to the toilet 20 times a day. So, you know, it's definitely improved my life 100%, 100%. Yeah, it's good.
Well, Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us today. Like I said, all her information will be shared in the show notes below, so do go over, give her a follow, and any questions, pop them through. But folks, that's it for today. Do come back to join us for another episode next week. But for now, it is over and out from Elizabeth and myself. Elizabeth, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.